this thing on? All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode of Cards and Content, a new podcast coming to this channel. And this has been an incredible journey to get back to this point. We've done some podcasting in the past with people who I've got to give some tremendous love to. Tyler, Lou, Jay, Courtney, Bobby, and the rest of the Card Talk team. They were absolutely instrumental in my sports card journey. Filming those episodes with them for so long was such a big part of our content, of who we were, who we are. So I would not have been in this position without those guys. So incredibly grateful for them, who I still get to talk to on a consistent basis. But although they are not joining me on this podcast, at least not every episode, I hope to have them on to catch up with them one day. I wanted to give them a tremendous amount of love. But I'm excited to get on this podcasting journey. Like I've said earlier, this is not content we naturally produce on a consistent basis on this channel. We've got your card shows, your mail days, your box openings, and those pieces of content are moments in time. They happen, they end, and then they disappear. This is content where I'm hoping to talk more about the here and the now. I've been in this hobby every single day since 2006. I started after Vince Young and Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart went pro, and that 2006 class was supposed to be, insane. And at the time, I was in middle school, and I have not taken a day off since then. I've lived through Linsanity and Alfred Morris and Tony Romo and, so many moments in this hobby over nearly 2 decades. I'm excited to share what I've learned and how I got to right here. So I think this will be an incredible journey. And then, the name of the podcast, Cards and Content. Without calling it Cards, Content, and Ohio State Football, you pretty much cover the things I enjoy the most on a daily basis, right? Outside of my family, cards and content are two of the things I am very, very passionate about. So I'm excited to get into the content piece. When I started this back in, full-time 2018, I had a little bit of content, some Derek Carr PC videos, filming at the National for the first time in 2019. Those are things, there wasn't a lot of card content out. There wasn't card show vlogs. That wasn't really a big thing. There was definitely some out there, but it wasn't what it is now. And I've learned a lot in that amount of time. And I'm hoping I can use what I've learned in a short period of time from a content perspective to maybe help others on their journey. So while that probably won't be the main focus on the show, I think we'll have some guests, some episodes where we'll talk more about content specifically, why we do specific things, and where we might be able to help ultimately you or anyone listening that's looking for help on the content piece. So I'm sure we'll get into some Q&A, some things like that in future episodes where I look to lean into the content piece of this podcast. But again, excited to just be back, to be here, to be talking. Again, this is something we've talked about for a long time. These are conversations that we get to have internally about, hey, what do you think about this or this player, or why we buy jersey numbers, or, Pokemon's having a moment, or the future of the hobby, or what the licensing agreement means, or an exclusive deal, or NIL trading cards, or case hits. There's a lot of things that happen in this market. This market is huge. So hopefully we can talk about things that, impact us, impact the hobby. And I would love to get into some of those conversations. We probably won't get into every single thing. This market is massive. I like to stick to the things that we know and we enjoy talking about. So we'll likely get into a lot of different things. Hopefully, we'll have some Q&A episodes coming up soon. We've definitely got some interviews lined up. We'll have a special guest on today's episode, and we have more. I already have multiple guests planned and lined up, so I'm excited to show you guys some of those upcoming episodes. We've been really working behind the scenes on a lot of this here over the last 6 to 8 weeks, and ultimately over the last year, but it's finally led to right here. So excited to continue this. I want to start most of the episodes with really we did this on Card Talk, and I loved this idea. I think it was a great intro into the the episode. But I want to start with like one thing today, really one thing that's on my mind today. We're going to talk to our guest later about this a little bit more. I know it'll come up, but really, card shows. Shewana is a favorite of mine. If you've watched any of our content on our YouTube platform, you know shewana. We've had many videos, many vlogs at that show. That show is coming up this weekend, so excited to be there. Brad, show promoter, B Sports on Instagram, is a great friend, someone I've known over a decade. I actually had the privilege of hiring Brad to join our team in late 2024 to help run some more events, card shows, etc. So excited to partner with him on growing shewana into a bigger venue, many more dealers, many from across the country, some great people. Obviously, locally, that show is built on a core group, and it's grown from there. So really excited for that. The show scene has been, a little hit or miss in the early part of this year. Dallas was bananas earlier this year. We had a lot of luck at Culture Collision. We've seen some good shows. We've seen some good trends. So excited to see what shewana is going to turn into here this weekend as we, we've been building this one for quite some time. So excited to get into that. So the very first interview ever on this channel, we're going to get into that right now. It's going to be a guest I'm excited to have you guys listen to. He's a good friend of mine, someone who is local here in Columbus. So let's kick it over to the very first ever interview on Cards and Content. All right, guys, we are here with our very first ever interview guest on the channel. And this one's going to be fun. This is a friend, also someone that happens to be local. I think that's going to be fun, is interviewing people here in the Columbus area. So we're going to start off our first ever interview with my guy, Brent, a friend, fellow card collector, content creator. So Brent, Shannonsscards on IG, on YouTube. I'm sure we'll get into that here in a second. But Brent, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, like you said, as soon as you asked me, it was a no doubter for sure. Hanging out with you all the time inside of shows, around Columbus area and so forth, going to games. So this was a no-brainer. Excited to shoot this. Never shot content with you, so definitely going to be different than shooting it with myself. So
yeah, we talk a lot about content and cards outside of here, off camera. So I thought this would be a fun one to shoot together. But I think we're going to get a lot of questions out of this that seem like we know the answer to, like, between each other, but we don't really talk about. So kind of Brent's origin story, why he buys what he buys and sells what he sells. So excited to kind of get into some of those questions. But I think the first and foremost is the most important is, how did you get here? How did you, get in cards?
So first off, growing up, just was always playing baseball. So obviously collected baseball cards, went to a bunch of Columbus Clippers games, which is obviously local. Home of the Guardians team affiliate. So just always growing up watching them, and always wanted to be on a card myself, being a baseball player, going to college and stuff like that. So I used to autograph chase and chase players around after games, get some autographs, good and bad interactions with them. I'm sure everyone knows that not everyone's the nicest person out there. So
can you give us any?
Probably my worst experience ever was probably.
So no good one, just straight into the best.
Right into the worst.
This guy's terrible.
Zach Greinke, probably the most awkward person. Not that he was like rude by any means, but just very extremely awkward and just had nothing to do with it really. So he was definitely the worst one in terms of interactions. Probably my favorite interaction, was the nicest dude you could probably ever meet, is Cole Tucker.
Really? Wow.
In the cards.
Pirates
so is
guy?
so is his brother, Carson Tucker.
Wow.
Both in the cards, both very nice people, raised very well. So you could tell that for sure. But yeah, chasing them around, collecting autographs, getting autographs from like Mike Trout and Bryce Harper. So I've gotten to meet some of the biggest stars in the game and got some autographs from them. So a little bit better than paying for like at the National to meet him for like $400. So
my guy said you'd rather wait around for 6 hours to get an autograph. So don't pay $400.
Free one.
I'll get a free one 4 hours later.
Free one.
So how did you kind of transition in from like the autograph, the autograph hunt into like actual sports cards and case hits and what you do now?
So it was about 6 months before COVID happened, and I was buying cards, and obviously like there's guys I couldn't get when I was chasing them, so I was like, okay, I'll just buy their certified auto. If I can't get them, I'll just buy it that way.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then I started learning that you could flip them and sell them for money, and I started making good money, and I was like, well, let's just try this consistently for many years, and I've been doing it since 2019 now. And one of my favorite stories ever was I bought a card from a friend for like $300 right before COVID.
What was it?
A Steph Curry patch out of 5 college auto.
Steph Curry patch out of 5 for $300?
300, or maybe it was 400. I can't remember. It was in between 3 and 4, I think. Bought it. Kind of worried. That's when I think, what was it, tear his ACL?
I don't know.
I can't remember. He had an extreme injury that year.
I think Curry, B-Dub can check for us. I think
He had an
Curry
extreme injury.
I think Achilles.
Yeah, okay.
I always thought that was most of Curry's injuries.
Yeah, so it might have been
Broken
that.
left hand and fall against Suns.
But it was early on. He did something that put him out for the season, and I saw it, and I was like, I'm going to buy it now. And at that time, I was just collecting them, and I had like cool patch autos out of 5, 101s, and stuff like that, and I didn't plan on selling them. Well, I bought it, and I was at a show, setting up at my first ever show. And
what show was it?
It was Louisville, Kentucky, ran by, I think it's Jeff.
Okay.
He now runs the Midwest Monster.
Okay.
He invited us out, set up my very first show, put the card out there. This is now, at this point, this is like mid-COVID. Okay. So like prices are like extremely crazy. Bought it for like $300 or $400, sold it for $2,500. And ever since then, I've been seeing the money, and I've been trying to continuously do that. Great sports card, Logan Harris.
Logan, oh gosh. Shout out Logan.
So shout out for the great deals from Great Sports Cards.
Oh my gosh.
So not a bad $2,000 flip. So
you were probably hooked at that point.
Oh yeah, at that point it was like, okay, I just made $2,000 off of one card plus all the other cards I sold. I was hooked.
Gotcha. Now, have you done any of the autograph chasing since?
Not often. So
Gotcha.
it's became, I do the cards now. I travel all over the country now and shoot content myself. So I don't do that too much, but I will like go to Reds Fest. That's like an event where you can meet all the Reds players and stuff like that. So I do a lot of that now. But
love it. Well, I think that brings us, segue into the next piece. You say you travel all over. Obviously, I know that. And I know a little bit more about like what you buy, why, and what you have success with. But, a lot of that is, we talk about it a lot, is the case hit thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Case hits are obviously a much bigger part of the, card hobby now versus when he started,
mm-hmm.
over 5 years. I feel like that's a market that's probably changed pretty heavily. It's definitely evolved. How did you get into that piece of the hobby, and why do you stay so much in there now? Because you do a lot of it, and I know you, and I know you have a lot of success in it. So why, how and why case
right.
hits?
So I really credit buying the downtowns and the kabooms to really jump starting a lot of my stuff in terms of profit and moving cards a lot. Just because essentially when I was buying them at first, I was early into the market. I was literally clicking them on eBay.
I remember you
and selling them for
50
to 60 to 70 to 80 to $100+ over what they were selling for. So like I jumped in early and thought, okay, I'm doing really well in this market. So, and I've always been one to myself say, hey, do what you're good at. That's what I was good at first. I was buying case hits and watching them continuously grow. I believed in that market as soon as possible because I saw what the instant result was selling them. I would literally buy them on eBay, put them in a showcase. They were gone for $50 more almost every time. So you do that 10, 20, 30 times at a show, you start talking some serious money. So I just kept doing that. I was really good at it, and I still do it. Like I said, I was very early, so I was buying like downtown Pandoras out of 25 and golds for like $300 and $400.
I've seen these.
So
comps.
we'll clip them. I'll send them to you. And it was absolutely insane. I think one of the ones I have looked up recently, I bought a Jameson Williams
I remember this.
Pandora out of 25 for I think $340 or something like that. It's probably, I would assume, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 now. So
900 / 1,000, not 900,000. I don't want somebody to be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. $900,000 card. I took it as 900 to 1,000 originally, but 900 to 1,000.
So like that
it's
to
gotta
me,
be more than that though.
It might be. It might be now.
B-Dub, what's that worth? Because a Reggie Wayne Pandora to 25's got to be. When I saw that, I think those were like 1,500 when we picked that up at Fort Wayne. So we'll look that up here and get a comp for that. But sorry to interrupt.
No. So I've just kind of stuck to what I was good at and did that for a while. And now it's still going on. Now I pay a little bit stronger now than I have to sometimes, just because everyone at this point watches the content. If they do, they're like, okay, this guy buys downtowns, kabooms, take him to him. He'll buy them from you. And I always do. So I've done really good in that market, but I like the market still going forward. the real reason I kept going with it is Whatnot started shortly after.
Yep.
And I saw every repacker that was in there doing it every time they were doing breaks, had a case hit box.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, if they're running 12 to 10 or 10 to 12 to 15 to 18 shows a day, and each one of them has a case hit in it, the demand's only going to get higher because you need them. So
Yep.
I just kept buying them and kept flipping them, and we still do it today. And then they're still consistently where they're at now. So
there's a lot of things I like in there. Again, you talk about one thing I'm always curious about. I always love getting this from people is, you mention find what you're good at and stick to that and just crush. And this is the one thing I'll give Brent a lot of credit for is, I always ask him, like, why don't you buy this? Like, why don't you buy this? Like, because I've always said, we'll buy anything if it makes sense. If it makes sense, you make dollars, it makes sense. And Brent is very big on, we buy these things sell. I know these things really well. And I think that's something that, people go about it different ways, but you've had a ton of success being like, this is what I buy, this is what I sell, and it works really, really well for you. So I love that. Again, I don't think that is what's been successful for us. I feel like it's probably bit me, a couple times because, we'll take chances on a lot of things and, get crushed, whether that's wax or a different sport we know. So it definitely leads to, things, but I've also enjoyed like the lesson behind why we don't buy this or why we do buy this, I think you'll learn a lot that way, but I also think there's something to be said about buying the thing, always sells and doing, and doing well with it. And then also, spotting the trend before it happens. I've seen some of the downtown screenshots before, and like you said, what evolved from early days and whatnot. Eventually, supply and demand is if every repacker in the country needs these, there's not enough of them to go around. You get to the point where you've got no names or bad names, like Henry Ruggs and Deshaun Watson have downtowns and kabooms, and people buy those. Like, why? Those have no real long-term value. Brian looked it up earlier to give some credit. Like, Jamison Williams, Pandora is $1,000. That was the last comp. So yeah, definitely not a bad buy. But yeah, Brian's looking it up. Henry Ruggs Kaboom, $151, $130, $200 for what is that, SGC 10?
I mean, what's an RPA do? A lot less. Like,
yeah.
You start looking up case hits and kabooms, and especially Henry Ruggs, like, look at the difference just in a case hit to like his RPAs and stuff like that. Yep. Now,
obviously the market so cyclical. These things have changed so much. Is this something you anticipate just with what you have seen over, your time in cards? Like, you're in this every day. Like, this is a big part of your life. Do you anticipate this being something that continues for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I do. So I think you see it a lot with the new ones like Zooms and the Rookie Kings. Those don't do as well as the Downtowns and the Kabooms, but they have steadily also increased recently. Even Dorian Thompson-Robinson, like, not good. It does like $30-$40 on Rookie Kings. So I do expect it to continuously do this. Now, do I think it's going to shoot up like a ton? I don't know. I think with them losing the license and maybe never making them again, I like that. Like you said, it's supply demand. If they don't make them again, repackers are going to have case hit box. Does it raise the price? I think it does, or at least stays the same. I don't think they go down.
It's definitely an interesting debate is, because it's going to be here before you know it. That Panini is losing the license. This is not, hidden news. This is the market is very aware that the basketball and football license is going away, and the best case hits in the market at the moment are Panini made. They are Downtowns, Color Blast, Kabooms. Those are the three, right? Topps has done a couple to try to make some to compete with that, and I'm sure they'll figure out what works, but. Yeah. Panini's got three that are king of the market right now. And what happens when they don't have those? Do they make unlicensed ones? Do they make college ones? Do those have the demand? Like, is Topps going to make something of Jaden Daniels or Tom Brady that can rival that kind of demand? And what happens to the OG stuff? Like, what happens to the Jaden Daniels, Downtowns, and Kabooms now when he doesn't have any more case hits coming from Panini and he's only got one? Right? Because he's got, he's a rookie now. So I think that's a really interesting debate is they're not numbered. they're supposed to be short printed. To what number, we don't know. What does that look like when Panini goes? But you think there still will be demand?
I think they go up. I'm a big fan of believing in the non-licensed stuff won't do well. So I think if you start to say, okay, well, when they lose the license, how are those case hits going to do? I don't think they do as well, and I don't. And I think you see that in Topps Composite. I mean, you can buy really good autos of good players in the NFL for very, very cheap compared to their licensed products. So, yeah, I think when all that happens, and I think nonetheless it stays where it's at market wise, but harder to get, so it could end up rising a little bit. So that'll be interesting to see for sure.
It's gonna be something interesting to watch. All right, so we're recording this obviously a little early, but by the time this one drops, we'll be a few days away from obviously one of my favorite shows. Mm-hmm. I think you feel the same. We've actually not had this conversation one off, but Shewana is coming up. This is a show. You talk about being early. I was super early on. Mm-hmm. Brad Beeman, B Sports, show promoter, has been a friend of mine for a long time. Brad and I met through Instagram back in 2013 when I got on. It was always in my Colts breaks, and put on a little show in Shipshewana, Indiana. I remember Dustin and I went up there and set up. This is when retail was huge, like Mosaic Basketball Blaster Zion rookie year was like $140. We bought a bunch of retail. We were buying everything. We had a little table spot. Show was awesome, and it's obviously turned into something super, super special. And I've been a big advocate for the show for a while. Obviously hired Brad in the end of 2024 to help with that piece of our business in 25. But I obviously want to get your opinions, your thoughts, your feedback on Shipshewana, and I'll start with what you think of that as a show, why you like going to it, and we'll start there.
First off, obviously you guys just changed buildings, so that's gonna be even bigger. So I'm very excited. I told Brad the other day, I said I don't think I've been this excited for a card show in a long, long time. And when we go to a lot of them, right? We go almost every weekend. So I'm excited for that one for sure. One of my favorite things about it, I think when I first started going, just how close everything was, right? The hotel's literally across the lot.
Shout out to the Farmstead Inn.
Yeah, Farmstead Inn, the best one in Shipshewana. I actually just got this question on Instagram. Where does everyone stay? Right there, Farmstead Inn.
It's sold out. It's been sold out for a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. So that just shows you how packed this show is going to be.
And we're talking it when they get up there, the rooms get pretty expensive towards the end. You know, B-Dub and I have paid $300+ a night for an old, Amish room in Shipshewana. It's different. It's different living. This is not your 5-star New York Marriott. This is a little different.
I always laugh with my content guys who come with me and help me film and stuff like that. I said, every time you get in the shower, it's in the middle of your back. Yeah. You're taller than the shower head. So it's a little bit different hotel for sure, but the best one to stay at without a doubt. But my favorite part about Shipshewana is just the people. Brad does a great job of bringing in just people from every different state around us, right? I would assume multiple states are going to be represented here. I know there's a buddy of mine, RJM Card Breakers. They're coming from New York. So you got people flying in from all over to get to this little town in the middle of nowhere to sell sports cards. So the job he's done, bringing in the people that he's brought in and just having the quality of dealers that he's always had has just been a very good job from the start. And it's only grown. So Brad's done a great job. You guys teaming up now is going to be tremendous. And I'm excited to see where it goes because I know as a show sponsor, I don't sponsor many shows, but I was willing to put my name on this one. So I'm excited for that one for sure.
Well, we definitely appreciate you, on that. I think, you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's one of the things, I've talked about Shipshewana in a lot of vlogs, and every Shipshewana vlog, I always end it with the same thing. And when I gonna give hey, what are your thoughts on Shipshewana? What are your thoughts on this show? I think you said, you hit the nail on the head. It's got some of the best people in the country. It is, you said it. You go to a lot of shows. I go to a ton of shows. Some of the best vendors in the country go to this show. There's a lot of people that are what Brad calls day ones of that show that are just good people. And that's hard to find. And I think that nucleus of people is what really makes Shipshewana what it is. You've got that core group that comes and, you build around that and you can continue to grow. And I think it brings a lot of intrigue to a lot of people because like when you look at that show, it is in the middle of nowhere. It's 30 minutes away from Starbucks. It's 28 minutes away from an Applebee's. It is not close. Like there's a popcorn shed it's the biggest popcorn building I've ever seen in my life.
Subway closes at 4 p.m.
Subway closes at 4.
Can't even get food there.
There's as many horse and buggies as there are cars. There's less than 1,000 people in this town. It's in the middle of nowhere, Indiana, northern Indiana. And it sounds crazy, but it's in such a good spot.
Yep.
Because you are 4 hours away from major towns in Michigan. You're not too far from Chicago. You're less than 4 hours from Indianapolis. You're less than 4 hours from Columbus. You're less than 4 hours from Cleveland. You're like 5.5 hours from Cincinnati. Like you're so close to major card cities. There's a lot of card collectors, a lot of card, companies, businesses, people in a reasonable drive of Shipshewana. It's really a good spot. I think the Midwest is obviously a great hub for it. Like you see major shows in Columbus or in Indianapolis and in Chicago, Michigan, like Ohio. Like there's all those shows, but Shipshewana is one of those ones. It's in the right spot. It's got a lot of things going well for it. Obviously the venue. This is the first time it's been in this venue. It's going to be a lot bigger than it's been in the past. Obviously the barn, when we packed that was 200 plus tables. The aisles were 4 foot across, 5 foot across. Like you can barely walk. I mean, Brian and I've tried filming in there before, and
it's tough.
It's tough. Like when that show gets going, it gets going. And I think the other thing, and you could probably speak to this. I think the one thing that I've always told Brad does really well with Shipshewana is the show day on Friday is not super long. And it leads into a trade night.
Yeah.
So you don't have to, it's not a 12-hour day, but it's a really solid 5 to 6 hours.
And I think that's very important too, because going to some recent shows and some larger shows, you have too long of an opening day and there's no cards left for the second day. So you feel like you're walking around looking at the same stuff that it's been picked through or no one wants or maybe too expensive or just low end stuff. So I feel like that first day that Brad has of that only a few hours is crucial because you can't make it through the whole show. I mean, especially with how big you guys are going to have it. If you want to truly sit down and go through each person's cases or the boxes, it's going to take you more than one day. So I think limiting those first hours are very important. And I think that's going to make such a successful show for Saturday as well. And like, that's one thing I look at when I rate a show. I say, okay, how was it from day one to when I leave? A lot of shows are really good day one because all the stuff you want there, all the case hits are on the market, you can buy them all. But once something gets cleaned out like that, whether it's from just people collecting, other dealers, repackers, whatever it may be, I think once it gets cleaned out, it gets cleaned out because there's just so much money in the market right now and people expend.
That's why I'm glad like you're on here because I think we disagree on some things because while I agree the first day is always good because like the variety is there, things have been picked through. Brian and I have done some content on like Sunday. I remember Chantilly being one of those days that Brian and I went out there, and I think Sunday offers a different experience than Saturday. You also have dealers that like at that point they know if their show has been made or hasn't been made, if it's going well, if it's not going well. You can really get an idea like, hey, does somebody want to barter? I think there's more of an opportunity where people are like, I don't want to take this stuff home. Like,
right.
And then I got to put it out the next show. So it's funny because I actually, while I definitely prefer a first day, I definitely don't mind the last day, but I also don't search for the case hits quite as much. But just in terms of like your opinion, because I know you set up at a lot of shows and walk around to shows. I don't prefer to set up as much. I'm very open. I would rather go to tables, meet dealers, interact at their table. Which one do you kind of prefer?
So I definitely prefer walking. I think, first off, in terms of a content purpose, I think it's more entertaining. I really do. So setting up is awesome. We can buy some cool stuff from the table, but I definitely enjoy walking around, getting the different views of the content. You're not just sitting in one spot.
Yep.
But no, I enjoy walking around, meeting new people. The familiar people you're already done deals with in the past get a little bit easier every time.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So just building that relationship there, and then also building new ones the whole time. So definitely like walking.
Yeah, I think that's important too. You talk about like the relationships you have. I mean, I don't think I could ever set up at Dallas again. Like, it's been a while since we set up Dallas, years. It was probably with the Card Talk guys. But it's like, we have so many relationships with guys we go to. It's, Curtis and Vince and Francisco and Brooks. And, you go down the list and you got 7-8 people you can make a deal with in 4 hours, half a day in Dallas, you can make a deal with the same group of 8 to 10 people, have a video, buy a bunch of cool stuff, catch up with those guys, chat about life, the industry. It's pretty productive,
Right.
you know. So there's definitely that. But you know, I will say, just from like a content perspective, I do think the setting up at a show is a nice change of pace.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a different video from, you know, going around and buying. While that video I definitely prefer to make, for sure. I think the, you know, sitting at a table and seeing what comes up,
Right.
is always fun too, because Brian and I have been at shows before where things have walked up that you would have never seen on the show floor.
Right.
Where people are like, hey, I know you buy cool stuff, check this out, and you're like, you know, there's a couple examples that come to mind. I don't think we were filming at the time, and we weren't even actually set up, but we were behind a table making a deal in Philly recently, and a guy came up with a collection of like 90s Celtics basketball inserts. And it was one of the craziest collections I had ever seen. He had it in a little box. So it's those kind of things I think you can see that you don't get as much walking around. But yeah, I think I lean more of a walk around and buy.
Yeah, we try to do a little bit of both. I think, like you said, it's a good change of pace. You'll see us make some videos where we have 2 or 3 deals at table and a lot walking around. I think, like you said, I think a good mix is pretty good.
All right, so transitioning into, you know, transitioning from that, you've been in the content game. When did you put out your first video?
So it's crazy. Me and my videographer were just talking about it. We said we put out our video 8 months ago, I think now.
Okay.
About to hit 2K subs, so not
Let's
even within
go.
a year. That's pretty solid for us. My goal was 1,000, so like just showing you where I was shooting for. It's already well over that. But I think like you said, relationships are key, and when you know a lot of people and people support you, that happens really quick. So
I love it. So you're 8 months into it. What do you think you've learned from creating content around like the importance of, like, you know, what have you learned from like doing it, and maybe like you said, the relationship piece of it? What other opportunities have you seen from creating content? What have you learned in those 8 months?
So the first thing that comes to mind when you say, what has it done really for you? Like, one of the biggest things is we have a lot of show people reach out to us. Hey, are you coming to our show? We'd like you to come to the show so you can shoot some content, so they can not only support you, but then you support them, and you can film their show and show it to the world, and 6,000-7,000 people watch it. Now you maybe have a couple more customers coming in through the door through their show. So I really like that people want to be around you, right? Like people do respect what you're doing and love watching it. And people come up to you and say, hey, we enjoy your content and stuff like that. That feels good for sure. What was the question you were asking me at the beginning? You said
Just around like, what have you learned around the content, relationships, other opportunities you've seen, just kind of, you know, in 8 months, what would you say you've learned about the content game?
Yeah, learned a ton from the start. Like, it was definitely different. You have to realize when you're talking to the camera, you're not just talking to a camera and your dude that you're hiring to film you. You're talking to an audience of 6,000-7,000 people every time for me at this point. And that was the hardest part that I think I had to learn, is like you are putting on a show, so you have to interact with it, you have to talk, you have to basically be yourself. That's one thing I've also learned, is be yourself. I think that's one of the most important things I've learned from it in terms of that, because what people see in front of the camera is what they get away from the camera. So I'm about as nice as it gets on the camera. That's because that's how I was raised, and that's the same thing I do outside of the camera. So you see me at a restaurant afterwards, you talk to me, it'll be the same thing you would expect on the camera. Obviously dealing cards, but yeah.
Yeah. I think the authenticity piece is huge.
Yeah.
You know, not trying to play a part, like being that person on and off camera, I think is crucial. What do you think is, I'm trying to think of the right way to word this, like around like the content piece, you know, knowing what you know now, like any like major things stand out from like now versus the beginning, like in terms of like a tip, a trick, a piece of advice, anything around that you've really like taken to heart over the last 8 months?
I think the thing I learned from the start to now, for sure, I just talked about this the other day. I said the best content is the one that's posted. And what I mean by that is, early on I was so worried about what it looked like and how it was, and it wasn't a great show. People don't care. People want to watch your content. So like, posting it is the first step. And if you're getting involved in content, I know a lot of people do it now. That's one of the reasons I got into it. I thought it was cool. Thought I wanted to do it. I buy a lot of cards. People like to watch the stuff I buy. So I was like, it'll be good. But one of the biggest things is I would always go watch the videos back and like, don't put that part in there. Or, this wasn't a great show. Let's not post this. I think understanding that any post is a good post right now, especially if you're just starting, because it's not going to be your best work when you first start, and that's for sure. And I think that's in anything you do. So definitely learning to just go with it, and any content that you can post is good content.
Yep. Yeah, I love that advice. I think I would say something similar. I mean, I think the consistency thing is key, right? Like understanding that you're playing the long game for a couple of reasons. One, that like you said, your content now is not going to be your best content 5 years from now, but also understanding that like it takes time, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, your goal was 1,000 subscribers. You're at 2,000, right? And we'll sit down and do an interview, down the line, and you'll be at 200,000, right? And just understanding that like when you're doing something that you want to last a lifetime, it just takes a lot longer than you might anticipate. But don't let that discourage you from starting. Brian and I have had a lot of conversations around this. Like we had debated this for a long time. I mean, it's been a year plus since I had done anything on Card Talk and recorded any episodes, and it was like, oh well, we didn't have this, and Brian and I, we talked about it all the time, and it's just eventually at some point you just have to start and realize that you'll figure it out as you go. That's the thing is, Brian and I didn't have some master plan when he started. It wasn't like we're gonna do this and then execute this, and it's just like we want to film a couple cool videos. I think we've got some cool stuff. I love cards, and I think that's the other thing is like, when you're passionate about it, it's a lot easier. Like when you're not trying to like perform, you're just like, hey, I'm just buying and selling cards and just showing you what I do and how I do it. I think it's a lot easier.
For sure. And I think one thing you said early on that kind of hit me right when you said it, because it was definitely one of the things I saw early on is like, I got discouraged really. Like I thought I was going to be like 1 million views instantly. That doesn't happen. And when I posted my first video, I was on the phone with my videographer like, dude, I don't know if we should do this again. I was like, this only has like 100 views in an hour. And I'm like, this isn't great. So definitely learning from that. And you have content that you post, and you guys probably do as well. Content that you post that you're like, oh, this is going to be great. And it doesn't do as well.
Bombs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So like, that's some things I've learned. I just told my videographer the other day, I said day 2 of the Pittsburgh show was probably our worst video, and it's done the best recently. So again, I think learning from that early on and understanding like not every video is going to do 1 million views.
For sure.
But like I said, going back to what I said earlier, just posting it is a start. So
yeah, Brian and I had that conversation a lot that, this video, it's going to crush.
Yeah.
So it's going to crush, and it tanks.
And
You're
it
like,
tanks, yeah.
what, like you change thumbnails and titles, and you change so much, and you're like, oh, this video just not meant to be. And then there's some videos like, you're like, this video, like, show vlog should do 25K, and that's what we hope to get out of this one, views, and it'll do like 50. I think, was it one of the Philadelphia videos recently? There was a video we posted recently that we're like, just an average, okay video, like shouldn't be anything too crazy. And I think it was the first show vlog we had posted in a while, and it like, is it the busiest day ever at a card show? Is that what it was? Yeah. And I think the Philly one before that was it the Philly one before that? It was like a Dallas video or a Philly video we posted. Yeah, the before and after. Yeah, right there. Because we had talked about that thumbnail. Brian and I had talked about this thumbnail at the show because we started the Philly show with a really big deal with my guy Ty, and it filled up like 3/4 of a whole Zion case. And we had talked about it. We're like, this video could do okay. This thumbnail could be cool. It's a 71K views, and it's a solid.
Right.
I feel pretty good about that from like a show perspective. And that's the thing is like, but again, like, I think your point is so fair. Like, don't let those things discourage you. Like, sometimes it's gonna go your way, and sometimes it's not. But ultimately, like, goes back to the point I said earlier. Like, the learning is the value for us at this point. Like understanding, hey, why we don't buy this, or why we post it this way, or why we use this thumbnail, why we use this text, or why we buy this card. Like, I think that's the big thing. Is like, if you're learning and trying to get better, just keep posting. Like, eventually you'll figure some things out, and it will take time.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
All right, as I wrap it up here, I want to end the podcast with a question. I'm going to try to ask this to every guest that I, hopefully have on here. It's, you've done this for a little while now. You've seen highs, you've seen lows, wins and losses. You got more into the content game. You've learned a lot in 5+ years. If you were starting over today, what would be one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Just be patient. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like we were talking about earlier with the content. Be patient. Not everything grows overnight. I started with this is funny. You'll like this story. I started right around COVID.
Yep.
So I was just like taking money from my own account, buying some cards, hanging on to them, and I was like, when I sold that one card for like $2,000, I was like, I think I could do this a lot more. Like I could buy more. So I gave myself $1,000. I was like, I'm gonna go make $1,000. I Grubhubbed $1,000, and I was like, I'm gonna take this and only spend it on cards. And then my wife was like, stop taking money out of the account. You're spending $300, $400 on these cards off eBay and buying them and just keeping them. She's like, they're sitting in a case. So I took $1,000 of my own money, opened my own bank account for the card account. I call it my card account, and it started from there. So not everyone one of my content pieces is like spending $77,000 only on case hits. I didn't have $77,000 to start.
Yeah.
So like being patient and learning that I started with $1,000 and spent 3-4 years flipping, making $5, making $2, losing money, making 50, making 100. I think one thing I tell myself is just to be patient, because it does come. And I think when most people reach out to me, ask me, what should I buy? How should I do this? I think the thing I tell them most of the time is be patient, because it doesn't grow overnight. It definitely doesn't. I'm learning that with YouTube. I figured it would grow really quickly. It has, but not like. Yeah. I'm very competitive. I like to do well in everything I do, and that hasn't grown like I would like it to. But I'm gonna keep continuously do it because I enjoy cards and just being patient with myself and learning the ins and outs. You're gonna lose, you're gonna win, and just being patient with myself in that game too. So
I love it. Yeah, I think that's good advice. It's definitely advice that's probably pretty spot on to what I would tell people. Tell myself is it takes time, but I think that's one thing that I respect so much about you is you're super open minded in this. Like you understand that it's not going to happen overnight. You're learning. You got your head on your shoulders. You're as someone I consider a great friend. You know what you're doing and you're doing it the right way. So yeah, I love that advice.
Yeah.
Now, if people want to check you out on Instagram, social, where can people find you?
Yeah, Shannonsscards on Instagram and YouTube. We're on TikTok as well, so just started that up. Now,
how do you like TikTok? I know we're going to close this, but I gotta know, how do you like TikTok?
I don't run it, so I like it a lot more. I have to deal with a lot of
stuff.
stuff.
Shout out to Brian, he posts ours.
So my guy Tyler does all our stuff, does all the cool edits. He's actually the star. I just am on film. He does all that stuff for me. So I don't mind it because I don't have to deal with it, but it's definitely interesting. Yeah. You get some interesting comments.
Oh, yeah.
You get some interesting comments. You get some bots. You get all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And so forth. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's helped me grow in terms of YouTube as well.
For sure.
It's just so like you have YouTube Shorts. Most people are on there watching full length videos on YouTube.
Yep.
Shorts for sure are definitely on TikTok, and that's where people see me and they reach out via TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it may be. But yeah, it's helped us grow for sure.
Yeah, I think Brian and I were pretty early on TikTok as a way to post, and I say this a lot, like where people would come up at shows and be like, "Hey man, love the YouTube videos, love the podcast." Back when I was doing Card Talk, I got a lot of those comments, but a lot more recently. I would imagine it's 50-50 split now, where a lot of people are like, love the TikTok videos. Yeah. And it's just the full length videos broken down into deals. Like we'll occasionally do like a 1-card mail day or like a pack opening, a box opening. But yeah, TikTok, man, I know I'm on there a lot watching stuff. So yeah, it's cool. Like same thing with the content though. You'll have a video like this should get, 50K views on TikTok and get 450, and you have some videos that'll explode. Like when we did a little shewana ad read, like a shewana, like, hey guys, we're gonna come to shewana's coming up, check it out. Like that video crushed, and it's always the ones you don't expect. But I think TikTok is fun, so I'm always curious when people like, hey, I post on TikTok. So we'll put the stuff down below for all of Brent's socials. We'll check that in the bio. Shout out to Brent for coming on. But
thanks
for
for
now, that's all I got, guys. All right, that is a wrap on our very first ever interview. Shout out to my guy, Brent. If you guys have not already, make sure you guys check out his YouTube channel. Like he said, he's on TikTok, he's on Instagram. An absolutely good dude. I got to give a little funny jab at my guy, Brent. He said his name's Shannonsscards on IG on YouTube. It's actually got 2 S's in there, so keep an eye out for that. It's like Shannon's S Cards. He says it stands for like sports cards, but I don't know why I didn't put out sports, so I got to give a little jab to my guy. Great dude, absolutely worth checking out. Always buying cool stuff. You guys will definitely see him at a lot of shows. So make sure you guys check him out. Couple cool basketball, football, I think even a hockey release coming this week. One of the ones on my mind this week will be Illusions Football. That's a product that's going to be, you're going to have multiple hits in it, but you're looking for inserts, rookies, numbers. If you guys watch some of the breaks on the channel, we love products like that. Typically enjoy breaking things like that because you're not relying on autos and jerseys. That'll come out. I think that's sub $400 price point currently. You've got Skybox EX 2000 Hockey coming out, 23-24, looking for, obviously, Connor Bedard, among others. Shout out to my guy, Adam Fantilli. Topps Midnight Basketball, still unlicensed, not quite there with the licensing yet. Got to confirm which one Topps gets first, basketball or football. Brian and I will look into that for a future episode. I know one of them, I think one of them is coming at the end of this year, and one of them is early next year. We'll see if Brian can pull it up by the time this is over. But how quickly are they going to get that licensing? Will we get licensed LeBron, Curry, Victor? How soon are we going to get those? Obviously, those are some of the big chases in the Topps basketball product at the moment, but it is unlicensed. So be curious to see when we get those. So we'll look into the dates there. And then B-Dub, can you go back to that? I think there's one more football release. No, basketball. Prism Choice, is that right? Prism Choice Basketball, 24-25. So we're filming this a little early, so the release date might have changed a little, but Prism Choice, obviously a product to pull nebulas. That's obviously a fun one. I know football did incredibly well. First year they ever did it for football, but basketball has been around for a while. So, you're looking for your Tigers, your nebulas, stuff like that. So, couple interesting products being released this week, a football, a couple basketball, a hockey. So hopefully we can talk more about that on future episodes, continue to talk about some of the products dropping this week. Obviously, there's very few weeks with little to no product dropping, so should have a piece to talk about each week. But I'm going to leave you guys with this. One of the things I am most curious to know is, what do you guys want to get from us on this podcast? What are some things we can include on here? Obviously, have more talking points, segments, things that are going to be coming. Wanted to get back in the swing of things. Wanted to put an episode out, talk to my guy Brent, see what he had to say, and then get some opinions, get some feedback. We'll likely do a Q&A episode here before too long. I'm looking forward to those days. Those are episodes I always enjoyed when I was able to film Card Talk, so hopefully we can do some Q&A episodes. So drop a comment down below if you guys can. Leave a review. Would love to hear what you want to hear from us on this, how we can help from maybe the content piece of things, the card talks you want us to have. Those are the things I'm most intrigued by. So we will be back before too long. We have an episode coming next week as well, working on that interview. I'm excited to show you guys what that one is like. But for now, that is all I got. Peace, guys.